Our next speaker, Robert. I met Robert at an IANDS conference, and here he comes. And he gave a presentation, excellent presentation. But then at the very end he said, you know, that wasn't the presentation I wanted to give you. And then he started in with another presentation. And it was better than the first. But then we reminded him, his time was up.
I'm done.
Robert Tremblay. All right, get a minute for that.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you to IANDS for having us all here tonight, inspiring to sit back there and be, again, the last speaker, which I ran over at the IANDS conference, but that's the beauty of being the closing speaker of the conference. You just hold on for all you can. Again, thanks to IANDS for putting this on. I'm glad everybody could steal a few moments for themselves today and do something special for yourself. A new experience is always one of those marvel moments, 20-second moments I call them. When Larry asked me to talk about my experience, one thing Larry will tell you about me is I can't do anything in 20 minutes in regards to my near-death experience. I'll give you a Cliff Note version. You're welcome to read my blog. You're welcome to access my email and my Facebook. I'm pretty vocal about my experience. I think it's important to share it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about seems to be a missing link that not a lot of us talk about. And I'm not going to make a judgment on why we don't talk about it, but it's an interesting facet. As an example, on my blog, I have 30 or 40 writings of various, I have the near-death experience itself, all the way to future memories and psychic abilities, to whatever it might be my experiences with death. My blog has been shared worldwide thousands of times. But here's an interesting facet. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have shared the actual near-death experience portion of my blog. 20 or 30 have read the rest of the story. And I think it's an interesting dilemma that we have here in our experience, is that each and every near-death experience that you hear about is uniquely different. Ironically, it always seems to come down to this simple facet. The experience for each of us was exactly what we needed, in exactly the manner we needed it, at exactly the time we needed it. But they were all uniquely different. Now, we have 30 to 50 years of study go on. A few months ago, Dr. Bruce Grayson, one of the original founders of IANDS, was here, and he talked about the massive research data that's out there now on near-death experiences and what happens to us on these near-death experiences and for years afterwards. And Dr. Grayson said, interestingly, a facet, you can't study something you can't see. We all understand that, right? That doesn't seem to be much of an argument. So the way science studies things you can't see is they blow it through water at high speeds. And they measure the bubbles. I suspect, just like what we see in my blog research, where everybody wants to read about the experience, wants to read about the light, what I felt, what I saw, and I totally get it. But nobody reads about the after effects. Even last year at the conference, being the closing speaker, I waited all conference long. Not that IANDS did anything wrong, not that any of these conferences have done anything wrong. They're beautiful conferences. But I kept craving more information on the after effects. These are defined, according to IANDS, that 80% of people who had a near-death experience say their life was forever changed. It's that impactful. Now, prior to my experience, which happened in February of 2011, I was a skeptic. Dying brain, hallucination, chemicals, it's got to be some sort of explanation. I frankly just didn't have time to think about it. I certainly have plenty of time now. My diagnosis in February of 2011 gave me, out of the blue, over a 6-month illness period, a terminal diagnosis with 30 days to live. On the 39th day, in and out of consciousness, I wasn't dreaming. I was too sick to dream. I hadn't dreamt for months. Frankly, it's been 4 years. I still don't dream. Oddly. Anyway, I found myself in a big open expanse that looked like I was standing on the edge of a red-lit, almost orangish peach red-lit volcano lip. Although there wasn't full of lava or heat or smoke or brimstone. That's just out of definition what I had to describe it as. I didn't understand what was happening to me. The essence of time seemed like 20 seconds, but it seemed like 20 years. Anyway, at this expanse, briefly, I'll tell you the story. A small light started growing and grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was all white, and it probably was 12 feet, maybe. It was hard to describe that kind of distance. It seemed out of my reach. And this light seemed to be rotating on in and of itself. It was vibrating. It was blowing a breeze at me. It had a taste and a smell. And I don't ever remember that in a dream, but at the moment, I guess I just assumed it was a dream. Anyway, in the light, a face started emerging in different tones. The higher tones were bluer than the white, but it was a definitive face emerging from this giant light, and then there were words. It was just that simple. He didn't speak. I didn't speak, per se, as far as moving of the lips, but there were definitive words, and it was a question. And I'd already kind of given up in my hospital bed, 39 days into a 30-day time limit. I was pretty much all done and had conceded to it, had made my peace with where I needed to be. But the question that came out was, are you ready? And funny, it comes out, are you ready? And it was really a lot like that. Although there was no lips moving, and again, I had already kind of given up and conceded to my death, and I was okay with it, in what I assumed. But ironically, my response was quick and was without thought, and I don't ever remember speaking, but there it came out. I said, no, I'm not ready. The last words spoken were assumingly from him again. There was no question in my mind, although again his lips didn't move, and the swirling of the light in his face, and he had long flowing hair and a very aged face, and he was very trusting. So I said, no, I'm not ready. And a smile broke from his face and throughout the light and started kind of cracking, and he said, there's something important you're supposed to do. And his smile spread and spread, and I had an overwhelming urge to reach out, being the boy that I am, experimental and curious. And I touched what I assumed at the time was the face of God. Didn't know how to explain it. Within minutes, it seemed like hours, but within seconds probably, I awoke at my hospital bed, basically in and out of a coma at that point, and I was awake, vibrant, conscious. I demanded to see every one of my doctors, and within an hour they were all standing in my room with their jaws down to their ankles saying, how is this near comatose man suddenly conscious? And I went around the room and asked each and every one of them what chances are that they could save me to this point, because, quote unquote, there was something important I was supposed to do. And I told them that. That was the beginning of life-saving treatment that would take 6 surgeries to remove one form of a carcinoma or another over the last 4 years. 1 year worth of basically being a shut-in under terrible toxic treatment that brought me to hospice for a couple of months, and I spent 2 months in hospice on no treatment at all and gained 60 pounds and went into remission. So that is how my story went. I had, the biggest issue for me has and always will be the after effects. They are profound, they are constant, they're a little scary at first, and we're not talking about them. If you want to understand and you want to find proof about this, whatever brought you here for this experience today, I think everybody has a smack of desperation of seeking some answer for themselves. The answer, as lovely as these experiences are not in the man in the white face and the white light and everybody's experience. They were so beautiful and so lovely, and I think they're so magnificently uplifting to read. But the real proof that we might all be missing isn't in your experience or my experience. It's in how, prior to my experience, I couldn't change one thing about my personality. I changed everything about myself, literally almost overnight. It's unexplainable. I don't understand it. We're trying to understand it. But some of it is just about sharing it and being able to talk about it. You don't have to have a near-death experience to do it. A spiritual transformative event can do it too. But these changes that we go through are rapid, they're crazy, scary, and to be honest, I'm 4 years in and it hasn't stopped. I heard you speak about it. It's an everyday evolution, and I'm grateful for every day that I have. I don't know what happens with me. I've survived this 4 times, who knows? You don't know either. But I guess that's why we're all sitting here today, is to try to enjoy that one now moment for ourselves and steal it for ourselves. I urge you, if you get some time, go online and read IANDS.org and read about the after effects. Everybody loves to read about the stories. We still have yet to break the courage barrier to talk about the after effects and how we went through a lot of stuff to try to assimilate back into the normal world, to be considered normal by normal standards, if you will. So I guess I have a couple questions to depart and close with is, why aren't we talking about the after effects? Because they're synchronistic to all of us, timed almost exactly the same for all of us. Although our experiences differ, our after effects are definitive, tangible, studyable, and important. So I support any obvious research that's going on with that, and there are some movies and some awareness coming out on these things that I think are important. IANDS is sponsoring the documentary Back from the Light, which will be featured at the conference this year. I think that's important work. Again, guys, when things start piling on you with after effects for us, it's not an easy accommodation to figure these things out. So I urge you to, at least avail yourself of the information, read about it, and decide for yourself. But I think, again, the answers you look for, you might actually find in some of those books. And on IANDS' website, you'll find plenty of access to books on the after effects of the near-death experience. For now, the biggest after effect for me is standing in front of a crowd of nice people smiling back at you, and this is the best part for me, is engaging other people, just telling the story. I don't take a position on what happened to me and how I've healed impossible things. I don't jump up and down and scream and holler, but I do tell the story. What you do with it is certainly up to you from here, but again, like anything in life, it is what we make it. So I hope you make it beautiful. Thanks for being here. But never had seen one, or probably wouldn't have met one had I. But here's the reality. Almost 3 years exactly after my experiences touching this face of God that I thought, in this dream that I thought was the most vivid, peaceful experience of my life, I thought, still do. 3 years later, I get a calendar at Christmas time from my mother, big famous thing. Everybody probably has a mom who does the calendar, and there's family photos. And there we all fight for the cover. That's a big thing. Everybody wants to be on the cover. I'm no different. So here I am dying, and I'm looking at this calendar going, I better be on the cover. I'm not on the cover. But on my birthday month, I open up and there's an old picture I'd never seen before. And it was a man's face. That man's face was the same one in the light. The man's face was my grandfather, my father's father, who died 22 years before my birth. I'd never seen a picture of him in my life. It's called a veridical perception of something that you didn't know at that time. And interestingly, statistically and research-wise, people usually take, I heard some of you talk about it, 2 to 3 years before you actually realize you've had an experience. I thought it was a dream. In a time where I was too sick to dream, but nonetheless, that's what I just didn't know what to call it. So I think that should answer that question.
James?
The other night, I have a large movie library, and my best friend forever, P.J. Anderson, is also a roommate now. We watched by Centennial Man, Robin Williams. And it came to me, this is why, because we had a lot of choices to watch the film. We watched this. This was about a robot that lived 200 years, and his whole quest was to be more human. So I thought, this is a huge message for me. Why? Why did I embark on this journey? To learn to experience. And it comes down to a single denominator. My soul self wanted to, and still does, experience all that is possible. To learn or to embrace as many people and to help awake as many people. So it had a profound effect on me. I had tears in my eyes watching this old film about a robot that wanted to be human. And he did. He went through all kinds of mechanical changes to become human. So I would say, why? Why for me to embark on this journey that doesn't seem like it wants to end? All of us have that soul self, what I call the soul self, that has the body. It's not the other way around. You think, well, yeah, I have the soul. No. The soul has you. That's really how it works. Really how it works. So I am enjoying my transformation and how others are transformed. I see it in all kinds of people. Wherever you go, you interact with people. It is part of soul's purpose to learn unconditional love. To tell them how much you love them, how appreciated you are that they're even here. Here's the deal. You chose to be here. You chose to be here. You chose to be here this evening. You chose to have the life that you have. Your belief creates your reality, and everything is a choice. And I'm so glad that I chose this particular mission for this time around.